You know, he's been in with fat and unprepared Martin Paulie. Is there any danger that we're perhaps overcooking it a bit? Well,
It's all about...
I was asking Frazer.
Yeah, oh, sorry, he's looking at me, mate.
I made one mistake.
Yeah, and that was it.
And that was it.
Yeah.
The fight's over. Yeah. And if you've done it to me, he can do that to anyone.
It's a disaster for Joseph Parker if he loses this fight.
What is the point in everyone else trying to be a contender? They must hear these conversations and think, well, Tyson Fury comes calling.
They get the 3%, don't they?
So we are effectively saying that Tyson Fury, suggesting he won that fight, or one of those fights, is deluded.
I think so.
Yeah.
No, look at that. I mean, it looks like something from Halloween.
Yeah.
It looks...
Bloodthirsty Spencer Oliver.
That makes me a bit squeamish. It makes my go a bit tight.
When someone gets hurt bad, and they will, same as they do in boxing, this is going to get a lot more flack.
Pissed off, gutted that the TKB fight was postponed.
Pissed off, mate.
He's going to fight you in 2 weeks. He's going to fight you in 2 weeks, isn't he?
What was the injury, by the way? What did he call out
I think something to do with the rib. And that made me suspicious as well. A rib injury. You can have some time off now, then come back 2 weeks and 2 weeks training. Or is it the fact that Ben Davison can't be there because he's going to be with Fabio Wardley? Does he need his hand holding by Ben Davison? I don't know. If Fabio Wardley or Joseph Parker got injured tomorrow and I got the phone call, believe me, I'd jump in.
Welcome to episode 143 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan, Spencer Oliver and Paul Smith. Joining us today is the British heavyweight, big Frazer Clarke. Nice to see you, Frazer. Thanks for joining us, getting here eventually.
Sorry, mate. Public transport.
Don't worry about it. There's a big fight on Saturday night, and I'm particularly looking forward to it, which is obviously Joseph Parker versus Fabio Wardley. What have you made of Joseph Parker's resurgence, Frazer, since the defeat? I was there when he got beat by Joe Joyce, and it looked to me like that was the end of the road for Joe Parker in terms of being taken significantly seriously. Obviously, there was a backstory that he wasn't well for that fight. He's then gone on and had a good run of form. But what have you made of Joe Parker's resurgence?
It's been brilliant to watch, first and foremost, and I've been lucky enough to be around him for one of his camps. So I got a little bit more of a look on the inside. And I think maturity is a big thing that's happened there. He just seems like he's gone from, not a boy to a man, but he just seemed to have got his surroundings right now. You know what I mean? When I was over in Ireland with him in Dublin, he was very much like one of the locals. He seemed very comfortable there. Everyone knew him. He had time for everyone. And they're training in an old amateur boxing club. There's nothing fancy there, but he goes there and he works. Joe's mentality, I've got to say, it's second to none in terms of it's like all year round, right, which it should be as a professional athlete. His S&C guy, George, he's with him most of the year round. So I just think he just changed his lifestyle, and obviously the benefits are just everything you can see. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of credit's been given to Andy Lee, and I've always liked Joseph Parker and felt that he was a very capable fighter. He wouldn't have got a WBO world title if he wasn't a capable fighter. Mm-hmm. But there was always in the back of my mind this idea that he didn't let his hands go as much as he could have done. And now we've seen a different side of that with Joe Parker in the recent fights. Is it right to attribute a lot of this? Andy Lee's getting mythical status these days now in terms of everything he seems to touch seems to be going very well. Is it a lot to do with Andy Lee?
Absolutely, it's a lot to do with the surroundings, as Frazer said there as well. And, you know, you have to be comfortable within those surroundings. And I think that what we found is you need that connection, that spark with your trainer. And he seems to have got that self-belief, and believing in the trainer is so important. And he seems to have got that, you know, since that loss back in 2023.
Well, we're watching him now on screen, aren't we? We're seeing him let his hands go.
Absolutely, like that. And that is the difference. You know, he sets it up. He seems to have got bigger, stronger. And, you know, the game plan's perfect all the time. But as we know with Joe Parker, he's one of those guys, he's cut from that old cloth where, you know, it's not just about how good he is, like he's got good foot movement, he can fight when he has to fight, he's got that experience, which is most important, but the main ingredient is he can pick himself off the floor when needed to, and we've seen him do that on a number of occasions now. So you go, like, he ticks all the boxes. Difficult guy to beat.
Paul, is there any danger, as much as I like Joe Parker, and I really like him, I think he's one of the nicest fellas you can meet, and when I saw him a bit like Frazer, you see him, you're in a company, you enjoy being in a company, you want the best for them. But when we're looking at Joe Parker, I mean, he beats a bit like the Prince advert, isn't he? You know, the pop star, the artist formerly known as Prince, Deontay Wilder, the fighter formerly known as Deontay Wilder. He beat a washed-up Wilder, a Zhang that gasses after 6 rounds. You know, he's been in with, who else has been with? An average Simon Keane, a fat and unprepared Martin Paulie. Is there any danger that we are pushing Joe Parker up to a level of achievement that these 3 or 4 fights that we're now saying is the renaissance, this is a different Joe Parker, this is a different animal. Is there any danger that we're perhaps overcooking it a bit?
It could be, but I do rate him. And
so do I.
If the ability wasn't there, then I would. You've got a very, very valid point with the stuff that you're saying, because, listen, Zhang, I felt, come off a good performance against Ergovic before that, and obviously we've seen what he did to Wilder, albeit Wilder was not and is not the same fighter. But no, I think I've always admired Joseph Parker. I don't think, as you said, there's no one in boxing that would dislike him. Them call-out videos and that, like the persona, what he's unbelievable to watch, but he's actually a very good fighter. And I think Andy Lee's a really good coach. And as I've said, I've never seen the work he does up close in the gym, Andy Lee. But from all accounts and from all people that you listen, we all speak on the grapevine. And everything that I hear, I knew him as a fighter. I fought the same amateur setup as him as well on the international scene. He's an unbelievable trainer, coach, and I think that the relationship is working well. They're gelling well, and he's bringing the best out in Joseph Parker.
I think we've got to appreciate as well with Joseph Parker the emotional pressure that's on his shoulders when he was going in against Deontay Wilder, because it's easy to say after the fight with Deontay Wilder was shot to bits. At the time of him going in there, let's not forget that he was the underdog going in with that fight. You know, the Zhang fight, Zhang, you know, was always going to be a dangerous guy. He had him over in the 3rd, he had him over in the 8th. He had to show a lot of character to pull through that. So you go, it's easy saying, yeah, well, he gasses after 6 rounds. Yeah, he may gas after 6 rounds, but for 6 rounds, he's very dangerous. And you've got to be on the ball with them. So they're like top quality opponents, considering what it was at that time. Yeah. So I think that when you look at the opponents that he's beaten since, you know, that resurgence from, you know, Joe Joyce fight, I go, you've got to give that respect. You've got to give that credit.
Well, you have to look at as well, that Joe Joyce fight, it was brutal. I was at that one. It was in Manchester, and that was the first show that I went with my missus. She's seen heavyweight boxing up close, and she was like, that is so much more brutal, because that was one of the most brutal ones. They were hitting each other with massive shots, trying to take each other out every shot. But you know, when you talk about Joseph Parker, you talk about, it's been said, Simon said, thought he probably didn't throw enough shots, but when you look at the level of maturity, just look at him against Paulie there. We're seeing a lot of it. Like, you wouldn't, when I say maturity, I mean the fact that he's up close with Paulie. Now, that's not just randomly done. He's up and close and personal because
he's choosing to.
He's choosing to be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think
decision making. Fight.
Yeah, the way you handled it.
Me on the day how he went about his business and he got him out.
But I think that's maturity.
What Parker has that a lot of heavyweights haven't got is, like I said, he can box on the back foot. Yeah. You know, he can choose to sit in the pocket and have a fight when he wants to. He can pick himself off the floor. He can now whack with that right hand as well, since he's put on that size. And I think what Andy Lee has done is those fine tweaks. To answer your question about Andy Lee and that move to him, those fine tweaks as a trainer and recognising that Andy Lee's got great experience, you know, in the ring himself, and I think he's transformed that into being a good trainer as well. I think the chemistry gels really well with him.
That relationship, when you've been around it and you see that relationship, I just know if Andy Lee asks Joe to do something in the corner, Joe will respond, and I think that's so important. You know, in professional boxing, very important.
Do you feel a bit sorry for Joe Parker about the inability to get his shots, you know, in terms of world title shots? He hasn't got a shot against Usyk, and he got pulled, Daniel Dubois got pulled out of the fight in January. Do you feel a bit of sympathy for Joe Parker that he's sort of sitting there taking certain fights when really he should be fighting for a world title?
Absolutely, and for him not fighting for a world title, I just hope, and I'm pretty sure he's getting paid very well, but that's not the point. Joe wants to be a world champion. I hold him and Ajit Caballel in the same sort of breath. In a lot of conversations I have, they're the two I almost feel sorry for. I feel like they're waiting around. Joe's been very lucky. He's been a lot more active than Ajit. But if I was to say any two heavyweights in the division, I say them two should be up next. And it should have been a long time ago.
It's tough for him, isn't it? Because this is not an easy fight. You know yourself, obviously you've been in the ring twice with him. This is a tough sort of this banana skin. Yep. This is a bit more than that. This is a really tough fight, considering that you're mandatory challenger, interim champion for the belt. Should they be fragmented, which we think they will soon, or should Usyk decide to fight?
How do you think Joe Parker? How would you suggest Joe Parker approaches the fight with Fabio?
I think that Joe's just going to be cautious early. Like Joe, we know with Fabio, he's very dangerous with that right hand, and he will go for it. He'll push forward. But it's all about.
I was asking Frazer.
Yeah,
oh, sorry, he's looking at me, mate.
I was trying not to. I was looking
at me.
over the top of you because it's easy to do.
Well, Frazer, you can answer the question.
I think Joe will be very much a professional in the sense that he approaches it. Listen, we know what Fabio is good at. We also know what he's not so good at. Defensively, he was getting hit a lot in his last fight, and I think that's something they're going to look at. But one thing I think Joe will do and respect is the fact that what can't speak can't lie. We could talk about Fabio Wardley all you want, but he pulls the results out because he can knock people out.
Did you boys hear what Ben Davison said about the fight with Justice Hooney and how he approached that fight and how they expected to approach this fight slightly differently and how they felt that they couldn't bank rounds against Justice Hooney, that they felt that there was always going to have to be an outcome in this fight in terms of stopping Justice Hooney, whereas with Joseph Parker, Ben Davison is thinking that part and parcel of the outcome in this particular fight is that they can actually bank some rounds against Joseph Parker rather than the dynamics of the fight against Justice Hooney. What do you make of that?
Myself, like.
I don't agree.
Because I would have thought Joseph Parker was a better fighter, but Ben Davison was telling me that the cleverness of Justice Hooney, the way he sets little traps, was creating a dynamic in the fight that they had already planned for, a lack of opportunity for Fabio in his fight, besides the big one.
A better boxer, a better fighter, Joseph Parker, I would say definitely is. More experience, and been in more situations. He looks more the full package. Justice Hooney, from what I've seen of him and what I know of him, I've sparred him as well, he very much still carries the amateur pedigree with him, where he's very, very sharp still, throws a lot of shots. He just took his eye off the ball at the crucial moment, to be honest. And other than that, he was coasting the fight.
What did you think of Fabio in the last fight? Because, I mean, I would imagine it was difficult. He had this fight at Portman Road with the expectation of fighting in front of his home crowd. It was one of the few fights he was going into with the potential of being the favourite, because it was expected that Fabio was going to beat Justice Hooney.
Wild.
Well, I think most people were suggesting that they expected Fabio to win this fight. So when the fight was unfolding in front of us, it was going the other way. I think most people around the ringside were going, hang on a second, what's going on here? But what did you make of Fabio's performance? You've been in with him twice.
Watching the fight, I mean, he's got fast hands and he's very good at that front foot feint and then the jab afterwards. But I think Justice Hooney had probably seen a lot of Fabio Wardley type fighters throughout his career already, but no one that could probably bang like him. So I thought he was losing the rounds, and after a bit I was waiting for him to change, because something needed to change after 3-4 rounds, and that was my concern, that he couldn't seem to find the answers, like going forward into round 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, until he did, basically.
That's the worry, though, isn't it, going into this one against Parker? Because Parker is more complete, more rounded, more experienced. And Parker's actually that guy that can set traps and do things. Like, he works well now on the inside. He's built up a lot of experience. That is a big thing, because if it doesn't work for Wardley, it doesn't work early, like we saw with Justice Hooney, then he's just relying on that single right hand, which ain't going to be enough, because Andy Lee and the team, and Parker's that guy as well that can switch on for 12 rounds. I think he's proved that he's world class. The big question here is Wardley at that stage? Because if you look through Wardley's record, you go, he's been boxing guys at a sort of like British level, sort of like coming through, those sort of guys. Parker's been there for a long time.
I think, and this is the best person in the world to ask sitting next to us. He's been in England twice, obviously. I think Wardley is better than people give him credit for. And I think it wasn't just a case of he's a former white-collar fighter. He's actually good and he's improving all the time as well.
That narrative needs to stop now,
the narrative... Listen, against someone like Joseph Parker, it could come into play, but he's better than people make out, and he's getting better also. To be able to hold his own with yourself for 12 rounds in the first fight, to be able to not look out of shape, out of place. And then, obviously, we saw what happens in the second fight. Sorry to repeat that. But obviously he's better than what people make out like a white-collar fighter. It's just whether there is levels to boxing. It's whether he can improve and step it up another level, because I feel Joseph Parker is another level.
I'll tell you what he has got, and you'll understand this, Paul. He's developed like a certain set of skills, but he's also kept some of that novice stuff with him. Now, you'll know yourself, Spencer, from being in the ring, it's a lot harder, I think, personally, sometimes, to get in there with a novice who's just throwing things that are a bit unorthodox. And Fabio is very unpredictable. He does things that he probably shouldn't, but gets away with, because when he does it, he's an athlete, and he does it fast, he does it at range, he does it at speed. So that's the hard bit of the puzzle. Because in the first fight, when me and him were boxing, some of the things which, like in the knockdown, for instance, like obviously I'd cross my feet and I'd move back. But the way he came after me and just threw whatever at me and knocked me down, it's like sort of, if you look at the shot and knocked me down, it's sort of he sort of went to southpaw and hit me with a backhand. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he sort of spun you on the ropes and then he stayed there and went for you again and jumped on it, didn't he?
It's unorthodox.
It can be awkward.
It's what you're not used to. So someone who's very awkward, you will struggle with it.
How do you think Fabio should approach the fight, Frazer?
I think he'll know that Joe's very experienced. I think he can't go out there looking to blast him out. Joe's been proven to be in there with bigger punches, arguably, than Fabio. Even though Fabio's right up there with the hardest of the hitters. I think he's got to pick his moments if he is going to go in all-out attack. And I think he's going to do exactly what he did in our first fight, sort of box with him and just hope that when he does land, he'll see a reaction from Joseph Parker, but he's got to be more clever in the way that
There's a danger for Joe Parker that because he's technically a better fighter than Fabio, that he gets greedy and leaves himself in range.
No, I don't believe so. I believe he's past that. I believe them mistakes have come earlier on in the career of Joseph Parker. I believe now, the fighter that he is, I imagine if he sees the chance to get rid of Fabio, he will go for it. But there's a way. There's a way to do that. That's not being reckless, because if you're reckless with Fabio Wardley, he can turn your lights out. You know, if you get the prime example, you know, that first round of me and Fabio in Saudi Arabia, it was actually a pretty close round. I made one mistake,
and that was it.
Yeah. The fight's over. Yeah. And if he's done it to me, he can do that to anyone. That's why I believe Andy Lee and Joseph Parker will be a big onus on Joe being focused throughout all 3 minutes of the round.
I mean, what do you expect to see this week, Spence, from the two fighters? We've seen a very cordial interaction between the two of them, very respectful of one another, both single-minded, both focused, both speak very well like Frazer does, and both can carry a conversation and take it in a direction that's articulate. Do you expect either one of them to start trying to seek to get an advantage in the next 3 or 4 days before we get the fight on Saturday night?
Well, I think with these two, they both know what they're going into, and obviously fight week is all about mind games, trying to get inside the other guy's head, etc., etc. But they're not them guys. Like, Joseph Parker's been there, seen it, done it. He's like, nothing Fabio Wardley's going to say is going to rattle him, and vice versa. I think that, you know, both guys know what they're going into. Wardley understands that he's the underdog. He knows he's going in there, and it's great opportunity. And I think the motivation for both of these guys, obviously, is the winner is more than likely to box Usyk. That's where it's at, because the WBO's next in line, you know, and that WBO interim. So if they don't, they get elevated straight away to world champion.
What do you think, Paul, about... There appears to be a potential lot up in the air, but when you say that, when I hear myself say it, I think there's only really a lot up in the air for Joseph Parker, to some extent, because Joseph Parker is potentially taking a fight that he doesn't need to take. It's a shot. It's almost... There's more risk than there is reward for Joe Parker in this fight. And the other way round applies for Fabio Wardley, because a lot of people will think that because of Joseph Parker's levels, where he's fought at being a former world title holder himself, that this is his to lose. He won't be thinking that way. But where does the loser go to some extent in this fight?
I think you're exactly right what you're saying, and that's what I said just at the start of the segment there. I think it's a disaster for Joseph Parker if he loses this fight because of the position he's in, or the position he was in before he agreed to this fight. And I think it's good matchmaking. I think it's a good show for Queensberry to put on, because it's sort of a hiding...
Easy show, easy fight, because they're both
sort
in the same
of a
camp,
hide, it's sort of a hiding to nothing for Wardley in the sense that for lose, well, you know, Parker's mandatory champion, challenger, interim champion. I'm just knocking on that door, and I can come again. But I think it'd be a disaster for Joseph Parker if he loses. I don't think he does. I think he has enough in the tank to win.
It could be a disaster for Fabio Wardley if he gets... I mean, without wanting this to happen to Fabio, if he was to get properly schooled by Joseph Parker and really, really show...
Because of the Justice Hooney fight.
Because of the Justice Hooney, it could be a challenge for him there. But really, the jeopardy in the fight is Joseph Parker's, isn't it? Because of the expectation of him.
I mean, from the actual becoming a world champion's point of view, but it is, as a boxing fan, it's kind of refreshing to see. It does take you back a few years, you know, to like where
people take the risk.
People are forgetting about
taking the risk.
I'm mandatory for this and mandatory for that. The two good fighters, they're going to fight each other. And the pot of gold at the end of it is for the winner.
Can I ask you a question? Would you take the chance if you were in Parker's shoes? You know what I mean?
I get you. I'm just talking from a fan's point of view.
Because he's been there before, he's won the title before, it's probably the reason
Joe Parker
why he's
thinks he can beat everyone now, doesn't he?
Of course.
And if you listen to Joe, he's talking about he'll fight, you know, he's actually saying, isn't he? What did he say? I'll fight Fabio this weekend. Then, if I win, I'll fight Tommy. I'll fight
He just wants to box at the end of the day. Like, he's had that inactivity as well. Yeah. He's had the good wins over Zhang and the good wins over Deontay Wilder. And Martin Bakole, all right, he got a couple of rounds out there, and Bakole totally out of shape, obviously. But It's all about being active. And I think that's speaking to Parker. They said that's just more important to me than anything else. Yeah. If it's Fabio, Wardley, and I've got the opportunity to fight Usyk next, but we don't know what's happening with those belts. We don't know when that fight's going to happen. So in the meantime, at this stage of your game, when you're 33 years of age, yeah, of course you've got to take those fights.
I love the mentality.
I love that.
Yes,
if you're waiting for Usyk, you could be waiting a long time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. In part, that sort of mentality has been engendered by the fact that, irrespective of whether some of the money's coming out of the room, and we'll talk about the Saudis a little bit later, whether some of the money's coming out of the room, that sort of culture of taking away the excuses in terms of, Carl Froch always says, there's only reasons why people don't fight. They either don't want to. If they use money as the high buy, it's because they don't really want to fight. You've got to get the balance right, but ultimately, it's a good thing that we're seeing more fights. Okay. All right, Spencer, I wanted to talk to you about, last week we were talking, and I put the question to Spencer about the state of the heavyweight division in terms of what's going on, in terms of who's fighting whom. We seem to have a lot of questions about who's doing what with whom and when. We don't know what's happening with Usyk, albeit he's turned around and said he's going to fight until he's 41 now, apparently. Yeah. We don't know what's happening with Tyson Fury. We don't know what's happening with AJ. We don't know where we are with Daniel Dubois. We don't know who Caballero's fighting. We don't know who's fighting Moses Atoma. We don't know who Derek Chisora's opponent is. We don't know what's happening with Lawrence Okoli. We don't know where Zhilei Zhang is. We don't know where Deontay Wilder is, and we haven't heard much of Martin Piccoli. So it feels like I've just listed the whole heavyweight division. We know what's happening with you because you should have been fighting Jamie TKV, and that will come round. But do you get the impression that the heavyweight division seems to be, despite the fact I'm listing all these great names that we would want to be seen fighting, all of a sudden looks like it's a bit icklety-picklety and all over the place?
Well, at one point it's flying, and we can't get enough of it, can we? You know, every other week there's a huge heavyweight fight going on. And I imagine it'll come back around again. Like I keep seeing Ajit Caballero. I've heard rumours he's going to be fighting. AJ and Fury, I've sort of took them out of the conversation for a minute because obviously they are who they are, but they're not been in competitive fights. And I think AJ's just over a year. Fury might be that long as well. So I've sort of put the rest of them into a bunch. And the honest answer is, everyone's just wanting to know what Usyk is doing. I think he's the main part of the wheel. You know, once everyone gets to grips with what he's doing, they will try and make their next moves. But you'll be waiting for too long.
Hopefully this kickstarts it though, because Wardley and Joseph Parker are in great positions, obviously for that shot against Alexander Usyk. No one knows what he's doing at the moment.
But then they're going to come knocking on the door, aren't they?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, so let's hope that these fights, because I'm hearing a lot of fights are being rumoured about being made, and possibly a couple of them before Christmas, but negotiations obviously take a little bit of time.
Paul, it can't just be, though, that Usyk is the stumbling block. I mean, do you think there's a change in direction in the Saudis' mentality and Turkey? Because I think there's some money coming out of the room. I think they're pulling back a little bit. I think that Frank and Eddie, certainly Frank, has constantly said, why are you paying that? And it was a great period of time. The fighters got paid, and I always want the fighters to walk out of the room with the most money, right? But do you think that there is a sea change in what's going on? Or are you in the same camp as potentially these boys, that Usyk, the moment Usyk flicks the light switch, all the other dominoes fall into place?
Yeah, a bit of both. I think there is definitely being a little bit of a tightening of the purse strings, let's say. And obviously I don't think that model would have been sustainable for forever. You know, it's not just all of a sudden every show is going to be a Riyadh season show or a Ring magazine show, and there's buckets full of money and bags of money. You know, I think ultimately it is going to tighten up.
How does that affect the mentality, though, Paul?
The minute Usyk is ready to fight, he'll be ready to fight. Now, we played a little video in here a while ago of him dancing, and people saying he's meant to be injured. And a couple of people got the backs up over it. I felt no problem with it whatsoever. He's earned the right to be injured if he's injured. Even if he's got a niggle or a short little twinge, he's got a right to have all the rest he wants because of the fight he's just had and the work he's done to unify the division.
But the only thing you want
there are mandatory challenges sitting waiting, and I do get that.
But the flip side of that argument is that, you know, he is a man of great integrity, and we all said in the same conversation, if anyone's earned the right to perhaps have some latitude, it's him. Yeah. But by the same token, he was the first person to acknowledge the opportunity that Anthony Joshua gave him. So really and truly, he should be perhaps making signposting it very clear to people. This is when I'm going to do things. This is what I'm going to do.
He said he did, didn't he? He said he would, and he did to Dubois. Let's say, and he has said that he will do that. And I hope he does stick to that, because I want to see the belts being fought for.
Do you think? I mean, I make the point that some of the money's coming out of the room. How challenging do you think that's going to be for the landscape, Paul? Because if you've created inflation in a boxer's mind, and that all of a sudden they can see there's money to be made by fighting with the Saudis on certain cards. And all of a sudden, the Saudis get some commercial thinking and go, right, we've done our seed capital now, we've created our spectacle, we're now the kings of boxing, but we actually want to make it a little bit more commercially sensible, so we're going to start pulling some of the money out. How difficult is that going to be for fighters to readjust to, inflation's gone up here, it's going to come back down again, and you're going to have to see shows wiping their mouths, washing their faces in the same way they had to do previously.
Difficult, but it's also in the case that when Spencer was fighting, there wasn't as much money as in when I was fighting. When I was fighting, there's certainly not as much money as there is now. And it's like you always see the old footballers talking about, oh, in my day there wasn't, like we're probably like that in the old fighters. But it's going to come back to that. Whereas there was a lot of money in at that time when the Saudis first got involved, and the influx of money came in to make these shows, to, as you say, to plant the seed. And now that's how it is. But fighters
and
talk.
I've been there. I've been there as well. I've been there.
Yeah.
So I've had the opportunity to box on the Saudi show. It didn't go as planned. And now, obviously, considerable. I'm getting paid a lot less than I was for that.
So how have you priced that into your thinking?
So into my thinking, it is the goal is to be successful, to get back to being on them shows. Now, if you're telling me that the money in them shows isn't what it was then, that's not really a problem, because it's still probably more than what we're getting, you know, in
I think
England.
on the flip side, like obviously boxing has grown as a sport with, you know, with the involvement of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Al Sheikh, getting these fights back together. It's re-engaged a lot of fans, and I think so. Therefore, the shows are becoming bigger. One, originally Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois, wasn't that originally not a Riyadh season show when they put that show together? I remember Frank saying, so what I'm saying is these big shows at big stadiums can be made without them, and obviously the fighters had agreed terms and whatnot.
But they don't always have to have Riyadh season behind it to get Saudi money out of it, does it?
Yeah.
You know, they're in an ideal world. Why do you think Usyk hasn't hung up his gloves? I mean, he seems to, he's beaten everybody now. He's beaten everybody. So what is the necessity for him to continue fighting, in your view? Is it because he thinks there's another big fight out there, another big payday with the Saudis? I mean, it doesn't strike me that his primary motivation is money. He wants to get paid what he's worth, right, like we all do. But why do you think he's not packed in? I think at the very top, going out on his terms.
I think, again, he's a fighter. He's competed at top level for a lot of years now, whether that be Olympic Games or as a professional. And I suppose it's not easy to just... It's your identity, Simon. You know, like, when you've been doing it for that long, I bet it's not easy to make that decision and say,
but
I'm
he's
not going to do it
very clear.
anymore.
I mean, he's talked about, I'm going to stay till I'm 41, but I'll tell you what I'm not doing. I'm not fighting Moses Atalma. Yeah. Because Moses Atalma doesn't like to bash up grandpas, is apparently his terminology. So he knows what he's not doing, what he will do. He's just curious to see. Look, let's have a listen to Frank Warren talking about the potential of Usyk or Fury, a whole raft of things.
He's the one who's getting punched in the head. He's the one who has to decide who he wants to fight. And that's the bottom line of it. You know, he's 30, what's he now, TYSON, 36, 37 years of age. He'll want to do what he wants to do. You know, and either of those fights, the public will buy them and watch them. Why wouldn't they watch them? They're both great fights. And obviously the Joshua fight has a bigger story. But for Tyson, in his head, he feels he can win. He can beat Usyk. Whether he can or not, we'll see if it happens. And these are all ifs.
I don't want to bully a good man who's obviously got the flu. But, Frank, here's the thing. If you don't manage to make Fury AJ, will that go down as one of your big career failures?
Yeah, I'd like to see the fight. Yeah, of course I'd like to see the fight. I'd like to see it happen. And, you know, I'd like to see it happen purely for the reason I believe that Tyson has the beating of AJ.
Boys, where are we at as a collective on Usyk Fury 3? Does anyone particularly have a hankering for that?
I haven't got a problem with it, because I think the first two were great fights. They were close enough to warrant a third fight. You know, when we see trilogies, you know, it certainly warrants that, and that's probably where Fury's motivation comes from, wanting to reverse that, and that's why he talked about wanting to box Usyk over AJ. But I haven't got a problem with it, because I think the first two were great. Yes, the right man won. Of course he did, but
I don't think they were close personally, and I'm not kicking Fury. Obviously, I think he's unbelievable for boxing. He has been always. He's a legend in British boxing now, but I think that I don't really have an appetite for it. No. But I'm a bit of a hypocrite, because I have an appetite to see Fury AJ. I would still probably buy a ticket.
Good, but you haven't seen it though, have you?
No. I've never seen it, so I'd still rather see that. I would still like to see even the stage.
What is the point in everyone else trying to be a contender? Joseph Parker, Ajit Kabayel, Fabio Wardley.
They're going to be locked out.
Yeah, they must hear these conversations and think, well, what is the point? Because
isn't that up to the sanctioning bodies to pull rank on whatever people think
but
they
they're not going to. They won't. I think they're like, Tyson Fury comes calling.
They get the 3%, don't they?
But I think that the WBO will, let's say Joseph Parker comes through and he's got his opportunity and everyone's been waiting for that one. You go, that's a good fight, Parker versus Usyk. It's like, but Parker would probably be the next best heavyweight up there. Great fight. If Usyk decided not to fight him, that WBO title would vacate, and I think then we would get opportunity for other fighters.
But it's great. That would be great for everyone else. I'm talking. There's people in the divisions that aspire to be world champions.
Yeah.
Now they need to see that movement at the top to keep that hunger, because if you take that away. Remember, Father Time comes, everyone's going to be gone eventually. Do you know what I mean?
But that's why the sanctioning bodies have got to be made to be kept honest, haven't they? It's all well and good that they like to get their 3%, and Usyk can pay for 3% for all of them. But the fact of the matter is that you've got mandatories, you've got to do it, and they should be made to do it. Did you like the first two fights? Did you enjoy the Usyk Fury fights? Yeah,
I think they were very good. I think the build-ups were great, and I think the first one, I was there live. And I thought it was a great contest. I thought it swayed and it flowed, and there was times where I thought, Tyson's going to do this. And then after that, I was convinced that Usyk is the best heavyweight of the generation because of the way he turned things around. The second fight, I think again it was a competitive fight, but I think for me there was still only one clear winner.
Yeah.
Even I know there's been a lot of argument about that, to be honest, but if you watch it back. There's no if you've scored a boxing fight before, there's no doubt in my mind that Usyk won the fight.
So we are effectively saying that Tyson Fury, suggesting he won that fight or one of those fights, is deluded.
I think so.
Yeah, me too. Right, well we'll see. I mean, I'm in the camp of I want to see good fights. Can anyone make a case for Fury?
Can you make a case for Fury Usyk 3?
Economically.
Yeah, I'm saying,
economically. Because first and foremost, the question that abounds, where does this fight get put on? Because they're only going to step into the ring, certainly Fury and certainly Joshua, if they're getting paid and paid properly. Which means the question is, can you have these fights in the UK? Which is the disappointing flip side of this, because there's really only one. If I'm pivoting off Fury versus Usyk and pivoting into Fury versus Joshua, there's only one place that really should be, is it should be in London. But if you put it in London, how are you going to get it funded to the level that Fury and Joshua will anticipate that they're going to get paid for this fight? If they want to see north of 50 million quid, it has to be in Saudi, which is a tragedy to some extent.
Do you think it could be in a football ground in Old Trafford or something, let's say, in May or June or something? Do you think
stick it in Wembley, get 100,000 people. What are you going to get? You're going to get 10, 12 million in gate receipts. Where's the other 88 million pound coming from?
Another question for you. So let's say we do get the fight, AJ versus Fury, and it does happen in the summer. Do you think they would fight without a world title tag on it, or do you think that one of those titles, if they fragment, would go, well, we'll boycott it, even though you're the interim champion, we're going to allow these guys to box for it? Because that seems to happen with the governing bodies as well. And I can see that happening.
Yeah, so can I.
Yeah.
So can I. But I think that the thing about this fight is that it's about the scale of the fight. It's the fact no one's seen it. It's got rarity. It's got the reputation of two, arguably, the most bankable heavyweights, or not arguably, factually, the most bankable heavyweights in the last 10 years. Usyk all day best fighter, but he doesn't bank like Fury and Joshua. And so that brings the Saudis to the conversation. The interesting thing for me would be, can we do what we did with Daniel Dubois versus Anthony Joshua at somewhere like Wembley with some Saudi money behind it to make it happen in the UK?
Yeah.
That's what should happen to some extent. Then everybody gets all their boxes ticked, don't they?
And just one more thing on the Fury Usyk 3. The only one saving grace for me is, with it being Tyson Fury, I do now and then wonder, what if? Just because he's turned so many things around. Like obviously, remember the time when he was going to retire from boxing? Yeah. Now, if anyone could possibly turn it around, just judging on what he's done before in the past, maybe it could be him. But that's the saving grace.
The difficulty with that equation, and I think Paul would probably agree with me on this, is that it's one thing turning it around against somebody like Deontay Wilder, who can whack but can't really box.
Well, yeah.
But when you're fighting against an absolute supreme fighter like Usyk, it's not turnaroundable, is it, Paul?
No, it's quality, and there's no real signs of him aging just yet. And I feel that there are signs in Fury, there are signs in AJ. And again, I mean this with full respect to both of them. They've had unbelievable careers. But every career, and Father Time catches up with us all, every career starts to come to an end. And I felt Wilder was showing that against Fury. I felt Fury has shown that. I felt AJ has shown that. And we're yet to see a lot of it from Usyk yet. Maybe a little touch in the last fight, but I still think he's relatively all there, and he's still relatively young in his mind and body.
We will see. Bare knuckle boxing is continuing to get some popularity and rising in people's estimation. We saw a fight over the weekend with Paulie Malignaggi coming out and winning. Got cut badly in it, didn't he? What are you making of it, Paul?
I was there. I was commentating on the fight, on the Malignaggi fight, with Mike Goldie and Tom Ross, and some setup. It's brutal. Don't get me wrong, and we're seeing so many boxers, or ex-boxers more importantly, head over to the Trigon, which they call it. It's a triangle-shaped ring. It was absolutely nuts. It's tiny, it's small. And it's boxing, old-school boxing, fighting at its purest form. Now, I always had the wrong idea of it before I went to a few of the shows, and I was expecting the odd elbow here and there, like the unlicensed stuff what you hear about with Lenny McLean or something in the 70s and 80s. And it was totally different. It's well organised, it's well run, the rules are stuck to, there's no rabbit punches, there's nothing really bad for it, but it's brutal. And it is brutal, and I can see a lot of the pros watching it. They see Paulie Malignaggi there on right now, pulling away with, he got a finger in the eye, and there's a lot of that happening because obviously there's no gloves, and a lot of us boxers, you box with your hands relaxed, don't you? But then the slap in the hands. I watched Lucas Brown, big heavyweight, on the last show when I commentated in Bristol, and he, from someone who didn't do well in the last few fights of his boxing, he absolutely smashed it in that. He won in the first round in that as well. It's interesting, it's entertaining, it's brutal, and I think that's the best word I can put for it.
What do you think, Spencer? I mean, this increasing popularity, we're seeing obviously combat sports gaining and gaining and gaining and gaining, and currency be coming out of it left, right, and centre. Whether it's Jake Paul doing what he does in the YouTube space, or whether it's the UFC world getting bigger and bigger, whether it's Dana coming in with TKO, or whether it's this stuff. Now, what do you think about this increasing popularity around this particular discipline?
Listen, I don't mind it. I watched it on Saturday night. I thought, it was entertaining to watch. My concern is it's the ex-fighters that go in there, when the fighters that have been at that top level, like Paulie's a great example. So we saw him after the fight, he'd broken several ribs, possibly a detached retina. I mean, I don't know how many stitches he had in his face.
Yeah,
it looked like a road map, didn't it? He must have had 50-odd stitches. There you go, look at that. Wow. I mean, it looks like something from Halloween.
Yeah,
it looks like a...
And you don't mind it? Bloodthirsty Spencer Oliver.
No. I said I don't mind. No. Listen to me. I don't mind bare knuckle boxing in its own space. Yeah. I said, but I don't like ex-fighters going in when they've had that wear and tear anyway. So the tissue is all a little bit soft. I didn't enjoy Paulie Malignaggi going in to box Tyler Goodjohn, a guy who was at Southern Area level in his own, in our discipline, and Paulie Malignaggi, two-weight world champion.
He did well in the bare knuckle Tyler Goodjohn.
Yeah, he did.
What I noticed when I was looking through my notes, I was looking through the stats, I was looking at every fight, and you see the tail of the tapes. There was only 2 fighters that were in the 20s, the rest were in the 30s or in the 40s. Right. So maybe the fact that they're all coming over from boxes, because they're all similar age anyway, there's not many young men in there that are competing there. There's old, experienced fellas in there, and it's so. Listen, and the females, by the way, there's a couple of female fights that were tough as well.
I don't know the numbers in terms of injuries and safety and people getting hurt, but what would the upside be of chucking a pair of gloves on? How much safer would that make it?
They are saying that the statistical evidence or the empirical data says that the reasons why boxing gloves were worn in the first place was to protect the hands. Yep. And what boxing gloves have done is created the repetitive injuries in the brain being moved around. And actually, by punching with bare knuckles, the fights are quicker. And they're less damaging, and medically the proof is clear.
He said that with MMA, didn't he? He said that with MMA. It's not a targeted area and a prolonged punishment in the one area, because then it's all over.
It might look more challenging because there's more clarets, but actually the real damage to you guys as fighters is the repetitive constant
But what we're seeing,
acceleration of the brain.
But what we're seeing and what I saw on Saturday night was a couple of those fights, like Paulie's fight, where they go to 5 3-minute rounds. It goes the distance. 5 3-minute rounds with no gloves on, mate. It's just absolutely brutal.
Yeah, hands.
But the way both of them looked, hands as well.
I prefer the
twos. Absolutely. So I think that's maybe needs looking at something like that, because yes, there was the plus side is that someone gets knocked out and it's all over quite quickly, but when you get durable guys, these ex-fighters that have been around a long time, and they've got that, they've got that conditioning and that toughness, then you will get the distance fights.
A lot
and
of
that's
the fights,
concern.
a lot of the fights were over in the first round as well.
Yeah.
That's what you do find out.
Yeah.
Very rarely they go the distance. A lot of the fights will be over quick.
Well, let's hear from Paulie Malignaggi himself, who was talking after the fight.
Yo, what's up, everybody? I just want to give everybody a big thanks for all your well wishes. I'm fine. I'm still in Leeds General Hospital. This is crazy, by the way. I don't know how it works in the UK. I still have not been stitched up. It's 4:30 in the morning. I got here 10 o'clock. Still have not been stitched up, guys. They x-rayed me, didn't give me the results of my hands. They gave me a CAT scan. I've got broken ribs in the back from all the rabbit punches, not the rabbit punches, the kidney punches. The kid broke my ribs. My eyes are too foggy still. When they put the light, the really bright light, it's too foggy for them to tell the extent of the damage. They're hoping that it's just, poked and that's it. But it's too foggy, which means there's bleeding back there. So they have to check for a retina tear. And until that clears up, they can't really make a judgment on whether I have a torn retina or not. I pray to God that I don't have a torn retina. But my eyesight is getting better in this eye, at least. That's positive. It's not back 100%, but it's at least foggy. After the fight, I couldn't see anything. I actually finished the fight from round 2 on, not being able to see out of this eye. But I didn't realize I wasn't seeing out of this eye until the fight ended, and I went like this. And when I went like this, I could not see anything out of this eye. It was all white. So that means from about round 2, when I put that bad eye poke, I was fighting with one eye the whole fight, It's kind of crazy.
That makes me a bit squeamish. It makes me a bit tight. You're fighters. I mean, when you hear that kind of, you're used to being in situations where you've been beaten or you've not been beaten, you've had been in a tough fight and you've gotten hurt in it. When you listen to Paulie describe that litany of injuries and challenges, beyond the fact he's waiting at hospital till 4:30 in the morning, but all of that, how does it make you feel?
Yeah, that's what I said to you. I'm not a fan of the ex-fighters going in, like Paulie, going in there and doing that, because I think the body is weaker, from the wear and tear over the years. And that concerned me. I didn't like it. I've seen that interview already. And I wasn't comfortable with Paulie boxing in the first place. We know that he has a history of hand injuries anyway. He'd done a bare knuckle fight before. So I go, his hands were always, and he was like pitter-pat punching, and you see them.
It worked for him, not that style, didn't it?
It worked for him, yeah, but you just look at the way his face was cutting up, the injuries he was picking up, and you go, look, you've had your career, it's done now, bare knuckle boxing's got its own space, right? And
play
fair
golf.
enough, let's do that. But yeah, but for the ex-fighters coming back in,
Go play golf.
Okay, let me ask you this question. You can answer this, Paul. So the ex-fighters that are coming in, we've got Paulie Malignaggi there, great history
Lucas
of boxing.
Brown.
What is the reason for him wanting to do that, going back into that? It must only be because of money?
There's got to be a couple of reasons. One will be
I can only find one reason.
I understand from everyone. The other one's got to be a little bit of ego, and maybe that you still don't want to just drop it and let it go because it's not there.
To do that.
But I've spoke about that, I've looked at that, and I've thought, I reckon I could have a go with that. And then you see the damage, you think, do I want to put myself through that?
Kids and that,
Do
mate.
that's what I mean. Like, do I want to come out the ring and have my little girl who's 10 looking at me like that?
Why would you do that?
But would you? I mean, money talks, and obviously this.
There you go. You said it.
How much are they getting paid? How much are they getting paid?
But that's the point. That's the point. You go. There can only be one reason only to go into bare knuckle boxing as an ex-fighter.
Put me in Tesco.
I told you, he's got his own space.
Put me in Tesco. Put me in Tesco. We're getting stuck in shelves.
Okay, well, we've seen Lucas Brown do it. We've seen James DeGale do it.
Yes.
If the money was right, and I mean, obviously, Paul, I'd be fascinated to see what Paulie thinks about it now, having done it now. He's done it previously, but he's now been back in the mix. I think he signed a free fight deal. He's becoming ambassadorial for them. So I think they've got their hook in his mouth in terms of the obligation to do it. I wonder how he feels about it now after the fight. If the money was right for you two guys, would you do it? Would you take that challenge on?
Again, this is probably hypocritical. Money talks in every situation. Money does talk. I'm a man with a family, and if I wasn't in a position to provide for my family, and fighting is something that's second nature to me anyway, I'd definitely think about it. But unless it was considerable money, and if I could earn the same money doing something else...
£500,000 for 5 tours against the fella who was a journeyman in the boxing with gloves on.
But yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah, of course.
That's what I mean.
Of course I'm doing it.
And it's tough to say no to if it's that type of
money. But it depends, that's what I'm saying. I'd be interested to know the money.
But this is my argument. That's what I'm saying with the ex-fighters that are coming back. You go, there's only one motivation, and that is money. Obviously, money is a motivation for us all to do everything. But you go, when you're going into bare knuckle boxing, after having this career, you just look at that and I go, well,
You've been injured, mate. You've been injured yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't spend it. That money's no good to you if you can't spend it.
I wouldn't look at that. That's my point.
Yeah.
I think that when you've been into a certain discipline, going into something else, it's the age that these fighters are going into. They're in their 40s, mate.
That's the fascination, though, because it's different to what we did. It's not boxing with gloves on. We're all brilliant at boxing with gloves on without sounding big-headed. We've all done it at a good level. We've all won things and done really well. That's different. That's something like, that's the old school way of fighting, and that's something that always
do you think it will go, Paul? I mean, when you
mind.
see the guys come in, I've had them in the studio a couple of times. I mean, they're full of beans and they're full of the optimism, and they're talking about the scale of this situation. Of course, they would do because they're promoting themselves, but they're talking about the reaction to it from the audience. They're talking about their expectations from broadcasters and commercial opportunities. I'm struggling to see how broadcasters will want to broadcast if it gets that sort of messy. But how big do you think it can go, Paul?
Do you remember the old school videos of the first ever UFC?
Yeah.
When they first come out? I remember watching them, and there was any rules. There was no gloves, no mitts, no wraps, no tape. Some of them had shoes on and everything else. I'm not saying it's going to take off like UFC. You know, you never know. But I think, as you say, whether broadcasters want to be fully behind that, whether they change a little bit, modify it, make it 2-minute rounds or something. Like what I was happy with when I saw it was it's not completely, it's bare knuckle, but it's not completely bare hands. You're allowed tape up towards a finger width down, which we do in professional boxing anyway. You can't go over the knuckle, obviously. That would support hands a lot more, which would cause less damage to hands, which would be more entertaining fights and less injuries for the
Well, the interesting thing will be, if the audiences are there, broadcasters will show it.
100%. Listen, we live in a numbers game.
Absolutely.
Listen, if the numbers are there for the broadcaster, listen, don't think that the man at the top isn't turning a blind eye to it, because it's pound notes. But what I'm telling you is this: when someone gets hurt bad, and they will, same as they do in boxing, this is going to get a lot more flack. Just because of the nature.
Well, I want to
of it.
ask that question, Spence, before I close off this section. You've been hurt in a ring. When you see Paulie sitting in A&E at 4:30 in the morning, not being attended to and not being looked out for, and to some extent, and perhaps the way you'd like to think so, does it make you worried about the duty of care and the responsibility and the level of professionalism around BKB that isn't seemingly there by that video? I might be being harsh, but I'm asking the question.
100%. And we go back before that video, even when he was in the ring and doing the interview with Gareth A. Davis, and midway through the conversation, he says, "I can't see out my left eye. I've just realised I can't."
Which is a bonus if you've got that
actually,
time
I can't
in front of
see. No, but what I'm saying is, at that point, you go, right, stop the interview. You go and see the doctor. You go and do what you've got to do. You know, don't have another 5-minute interview where the guy's telling you that he can't see out of his eye.
So you think they've got to up their game a little bit?
Well, just, there's tweaks that need to be made. But obviously, you're going to get these bumps in the road when you're starting out, for sure. I think that they're definitely onto something. The numbers that are on talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel from that show at the weekend were fantastic. Right. So they're definitely onto something, but we just need to tweak things here and there.
OK, well, we'll watch that space with some interest, I suspect. Frank, let's talk about you. You must be choked, pissed off, gutted that the TKB fight was postponed.
Pissed off, mate.
Yeah.
You've done your training camp. I've invested heavily in this training camp because this is a very important fight for me. And despite what everyone thinks, because the boxing world, everyone talks, and despite what everyone thinks about the fact that Joseph Parker and Fabio Wardley are on the same date, and for whatever reason this fight's happening, I couldn't care about the other show on this day. Guess what I care about? Fighting, winning the British title, and getting paid. And now that's been moved back a few weeks, which isn't the end of the world, but now I've had to have a little bit of a break, a little pause in my training, a little bit of an easier week this week, and we'll ramp it up again from next week. It's just not ideal, but then again, injuries happen, don't they? If it is an injury.
And it's not an easy thing to do,
you got a doubt
is it?
about that? No, there's no doubt about that. Why? If he's going to fight you in 2 weeks, he's going to fight you in 2 weeks, isn't he?
Well...
What? Get it off your chest.
I had a letter. I was seeing that doctor's letter saying that he can't fight the 25th, but can commence training the 27th. Now, if you commence training the 27th, and we're going to fight 4 weeks after that, so you're telling me you're having... I found this out early last week. You're having 2 weeks off now.
What was the injury, by the way? What did he pull out for?
I think something to do with the rib, so I heard. Okay. Yeah, so... And that made me suspicious as well. A rib injury. You can have some time off now, then come back 2 weeks, and 2 weeks training for a British title fight. I wouldn't say that would be great preparation. Or is it the fact that Ben Davison can't be there because he's going to be with Fabio Wardley? Does he need his hand holding by Ben Davison? I don't know.
What do you think to that, Paul?
Got a point? Listen, I don't know. At the end of the day, it's not for me to say. You'll have to believe whatever excuse, whatever valid reason, whether it be valid or not. Only they will know. But
makes no difference.
It's all part and parcel of the game.
Yeah,
it's
the worst
ideal
feeling
going
ever when
head to
you're
head
not
with
fighting.
a big heavyweight clash for sure.
That's not my
it's
problem.
not your problem. That's what I was going to say. And what I wanted to say is...
What do you think, though, Fraser, though, given the fact that, scheduling fight dates and having them clash is a ball ache, isn't it? Because you want to be you're on terrestrial TV.
Yeah.
You don't really want Fabio Wardley and Joseph Parker fighting on the same night, do you?
Not really.
I know you can't control that.
Not really, Simon, but at the same time, Frazer Clarke is fighting for the British title on this day. He's getting paid that much. That doesn't change. That doesn't change. That doesn't change whether. Obviously, it'd be fantastic.
No,
to
but
have
it
more eyes
detracts
on
from
me.
the attention that you get, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course it does.
So is it something you talk to your promoters about? Would you say to your promoter, if you can possibly help it, schedule me where I can be a standalone rather than and also?
I mean, we could have done it on the Friday. I've boxed on a Sunday before. We could have done it on the Friday. There's lots of questions. Do you know what I mean? But basically, I want to fight, and that's the top one. As a fighter, I'm not interested in too much of why it's not. These people sit there in suits and behind desks, and they get paid a lot of money to sort these things out. Do you know what I mean? So that's not my.
How difficult is it for you? Like, the fight takes place a month after now. So what I'm saying is, obviously, you train to peak on that day. We all do that, and it's very difficult to get it right. Sometimes you may just miss it, train over a little. Sometimes you're undertrained just a little. How difficult is it for that slight adjustment? A month is still a month.
That's why I employ a team. That's why I pay. That's why I pay a team, mate. And
I also think, and there's not been any disrespect in this whatsoever, I think it's a bit easier for the heavyweights of the
weight
cost into the weight. They always stay at the same weight, obviously they stay
100%.
strong.
People like to say, that's why I have a team. That's why I employ people and pay people to sort that out. Do you know what I mean? What I'll do now is I'll listen to what I've been told to do this week. If we were still fighting on the Saturday, I wouldn't be here today, would I?
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? So, this week I'm allowed to have a little more of a relaxed week in terms of the training because I'm going to have to pick it up again next week to go into the 29th of November.
Can I ask you, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute because that's another clash of dates with someone else, and I'll ask you about that in a second. When you were last on with myself and Jim asked you this lovely question. Right?
I've just seen him on the way out. I've just pulled him.
Right, your mate Jim, which you handled very well, I thought, because it was a strange question for Jim to ask, and me and Spencer going, right? But it's kind of been weaponised by some of these little snot gobbling, YouTubers.
Yeah.
Does it bring out a reaction in you when you see someone like Fabio Wardley fighting Joe Parker and the magnitude of that fight? Does it bring anything out in you? Or do you look at yourself going, no, I'm 2-3 fights away from big time again?
Yeah, absolutely, because when I look at it, we can't forget the second fight with Fabio. I got chinned, it happened. Yeah. But the first fight was razor close. Some people might say I won it.
It was.
So if Fabio's at that level, and then closer to now, there was talks of Dave Allen beating, if he won his fight, was going to go on to fight Andy Joshua or Deontay Wilder and be put in certain rankings. I beat him in 6-7 rounds, whatever it was. So, it is a bit frustrating. But
it's one fight away, really, aren't you? Let's have it right. You are literally in the heavyweight.
The British title, that's the way I'm looking. The British title now is sort of a gateway. I think you crash the top 15, top 20 of the world. I do. If you win the British title at the minute, that's just the way the landscape is for now. And like I say, if there's all these talks of, if Fabio was world class, he's world class now, and he's had a couple of fights since me.
So what was I then in that fight?
And Dave Allen was getting projected into that conversation. Yeah. I don't know where I'm at. That's for me to show.
Who's on your hit list? I mean, you're not going to look past Jamie TKV, but in your mind, you're going to assume that you're going to win this fight, right?
Yeah.
So who do you like? Who do you would like to be fighting as a progressive opportunity for yourself?
When I win this fight, I looked at Makhmudov and I thought, you know what? He's going to be looking. He's looking that way. But around that level, I've seen him. Guido Vianello, he just had a really good win over in the States, and now he's calling in for Anthony Joshua. Around that level, I feel like I can go in there and compete with anyone. If Fabio Wardley or Joseph Parker got injured tomorrow and I got the phone call, believe me, I will jump in at that level. And people are going to say, "Oh, you're crazy," and they're only saying that because I got knocked out by Wardley. But before that, things were different.
We're watching on screen now Dave Allen fight Makhmudov. I mean, what did you make of Dave's performance? Frank Warren made some unkind comments about if Dave Allen gets caught by Makhmudov, he should get done for loitering and called it a donkey derby and stuff and things like that. What did you make of the performance?
It was gutsy.
Of both fighters.
It was gutsy, as it always is from Dave. It was probably good for him I don't think it was a particularly good performance personally. Makhmudov was good. I don't think that was. I didn't look at that and think, oh, this guy's on another level. You know, like, you know when you watch a Moses Atuma fight, and you come away and you think, oh my God, like that boy's dangerous. I thought Makhmudov was big and he was dangerous, but I didn't think he was outstanding. And that's not me taking his flowers away. I think he did what he needed to do to beat Dave Allen. I think there would have been a few heavyweights that would have done the same thing on that evening. But obviously, I was messaging Dave in the week, and he sort of told me he wanted to drag him into a deep waters, but he didn't sort of have the ability to take him to deep water and then take over. That's a really different level of fitness, I think.
Who'd you like to see Frazer and Paul?
Some good fights out there. Makhmudov will be great, but listen, I'm old school, and I think you should keep your mind focused.
Oh no, I am absolutely.
No, he will do that.
No, of course, I agree with that. I don't want to be
Yeah.
disrespectful to him as well. You know, I don't know him. I know of him. Obviously, I've met him a couple of times when I've seen him at shows, and it's a decent fight.
No,
It's one that I do think you can win. I do think you should win it, and I do think becoming British champion, and holding that British title for you will be great after the amateur pedigree and the success that you had, and the setback that you've had.
I probably made the mistake of taking my eye off the ball and looking that way. I've made that mistake now. It won't happen again. And
I say about yourself all the time. No, people forget the experience you've got and the people you've been in the ring with.
There's a lot of them.
And you had 2 full Olympic cycles with top fighters all the way through. And I've always been interested to know, like who is the best you think that you've been in the ring with, sparring wise, fighting wise, any time, full stop.
I'd probably go the big Uzbek that's a professional. Jalolov. Yeah, I think he was.
That's why I didn't mention him as an opponent for you. No. I think he's special.
He had the hands and feet of a middleweight, and the punch power of
southpaw as well.
A southpaw, 6'6", speed.
He's not looked great in his last couple, though, has he?
As a pro,
he hasn't.
No, he hasn't.
Really rate
I
him, but he hasn't
commentated on his fight last week, I think
the
it
IBA
was.
show.
And I wasn't very impressed with him. Like, I think he was much better as an amateur than what I've seen as a professional, especially in his last couple of fights.
But do you know what? I think this gets said a lot. The amateur guys that do turn over, it is a process. I know we get projected, but I'm telling you from personal experience, we're far from the ready-made articles. It is a long process, and I've personally found it difficult, the transition. You know, I'm self-admitted. I've not looked great so far. I've had my moments where obviously the Fabio fight was a good fight. I've had the bounce back fight with Tete, and I feel like now in the gym, and I'm starting to find the person I want to become as a professional fighter.
It's an interesting debate about the amateur background, isn't it? Because on one hand, you've got people saying if you haven't got an amateur background, then you don't have the credentials and the knowledge to be able to fight at a professional level, and you've always got that challenge.
I think the debate is, Simon, if you stay there too long.
Too long.
That's what it is.
Well,
everyone says I stay too long.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That was the
Do you think
debate.
you did?
No, because I got what I went for, and because I stayed that long, it did come a bit down to it was a financial decision as well as a successful decision. If I'd turned professional at the age of 25, my career, I'd be retired now.
I say with yours, though,
but
you waited for 2 seconds, you waited for AJ, then you waited for Joyce. You deserve to have your chance as well. You deserve to get your chance to go rather than.
And you talk about them adjustments. You know, in the professional ranks, we never saw that you could make those adjustments until the first Fabio Wardley fight. That's when we go, he's done it. He's flipped. Because before then, you know, it was frustrating watching you against, like, you know, the what was his name?
Marius
Wack. Yeah, you look at that and you go, right, this is a great opponent for you to look good against, and you sort of like you know, you just stumbled over the line.
It was laboured, and like I say, I think understanding who you are as a fighter becomes a massive thing. And you know, when you think you're doing things right, sometimes you have to just strip it back. You need a lot of home truths. You know, the worst thing you can have in boxing is people lying to you. And I feel like, you know, I've probably gone through this experience now, and I feel a better fighter.
The game's full of them people lying to fighters and saying, not to sound like it was tougher in my day. I think it's better nowadays for young fighters turning professional to make that transition because of the 3-minute rounds and the no-head guards. It was difficult when it was 2-minute rounds and head guards and more computer scored and like fencing. I do think it's a lot easier, but it's still a different sport.
It really is.
And I think a lot of people underestimate that. When you turn professional, it's a totally different game.
Yeah, 100%.
Talking about amateur careers, obviously we've seen significant amateur careers. We've just seen Ben Whittaker leave boxer, your stable, and go to Matchroom. He's fighting Benjamin Gavese on, ironically, the same night as your rematched fight.
Yeah.
Where are you on that decision? in terms of leaving boxing and going to Matchroom? Do you think it's the right one for Ben Whittaker? I know you've got to be careful with your relationship.
I haven't really got to be careful. But listen, Ben's my friend before anything.
Yeah.
I was his captain for the Olympic squad. Right. I've known him since he was a young lad. I've seen him develop. Ben Whittaker is always going to do what Ben Whittaker wants to do. That's the personality. That's who he is. Yeah. And I listen. People probably ain't I wish him nothing but the best because he's my friend, and that comes before anything. Do I think it's a good move for him? I just think maybe Eddie and Matchroom are global, and if you look at the sort of the camaraderie between the two already, as you've seen the video.
Yeah.
It looks like the shoe fits, don't it? But I just.
Well, Eddie has lovely camaraderie with money.
Yeah,
and he sees it. He sees it in Ben Whittaker, doesn't he?
I think most of us.
He's a promoter. That's his job. Yeah. Where are you on Ben Whittaker, the fighter? I mean, we kicked it around. We all like Ben. Ben made some observation the other day that I'm going to turn on him because he's gone to Matchroom. Not true at all. Mm-hmm. I think he's a great fighter. I think we learned some lessons about him in the Liam Cameron fight, and he didn't answer questions in the first fight. He answered them in the second fight. He did in the second fight what he should have done in the first fight. But where are you? We've kicked it around, just debated it whether he's got enough power as a light heavyweight. You talk about your knowledge of him. How good do you think he is, and do you think he's on a destiny?
I think he made a great decision going to train with Andy Lee, and I think that Andy Lee will recognise, and Ben is smart enough to recognise that he's in a division full of real killers.
Yeah.
He's going to
proper division.
That's
his brother included.
The one who I've known and I've seen Callum from the amateurs.
Yeah.
He took to it like a duck to water. Ben has got all the skill. He has got a very good family behind him. He's now with a good trainer. It's now up to him. I think,
But what do you think? Do you think he's going to be a world champion?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to probably have to. It'll come at the right time. He might have to wait for some people to move on. Would I see him in there with a Callum? Would I see him in there with a Bivol Baturbiev right now? Absolutely not. But he's not stupid. He's more clever than
But he's saying that himself now, isn't he? As well.
How far off do you think he is with the likes of like Joshua Boazzi, Dan Aziz, those sort of guys, even Callum Smith? How far away is he from that?
1 or 2 fights, I think. People are always in a rush. Remember, Ben's a young man. I think he's had 1 fight under Andy Lee, which was with Liam Cameron. I'm not sure who is this guy who is fighting, but I think it's now about picking the right fights for Ben.
Do you agree with that?
He did what he should have did in the first fight. The second fight with Andy Lee.
But by the way, he is 28 years of age. I mean, with respect to Ben Whittaker, who I like a lot, and I've got no issues with the stylistic side of the equation in terms of the showboating. I think it's all great, all grist for the elbow. I think he's more than 2 fights away from fighting your brother.
Yeah, me.
No, not his brother. He said Dan. He said.
Dan Aziz.
Dan Aziz fighting in a couple of fights is a good fight. Yeah. Not just yet. I don't think not just yet.
Yeah, I wasn't saying Callum. But
no, a few. Fair enough. Fair enough. Sorry, Frazer. Before I close the show, I need to ask you, as I've asked everyone, about my favourite fights. Obviously, Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. Where are you on this? Do you see the same sort of outcomes? What do you think?
Is the weight situation the same? What's going on with that?
Same fight, same.
Exactly, all the same.
I mean, we've had Bo McIntyre in here saying that the reasons why there was a challenge first time round was because the weight management wasn't done properly. This time, forget about it. It'll be done properly. It'll be the only issue is these boys have constantly educated me. It's about weight management going into the fight by managing your weight and losing it in the right way. Mm-hmm. This time round, he'll lose the right weight in the right way.
This is a boring answer then, unless Conor can change, because I think it was a competitive fight, but I still had Chris winning the majority of the fight. I can only say go on what I've seen last, and that was Chris winning the fight. So I wouldn't change my opinion on that until.
Because you're making a case for Conor now, aren't you?
Why?
You're not. I thought you thought that Conor would close the gap.
No, I said that I think Chris gets the weight right this time.
Right.
Yeah, I think, and so I think that Chris wins the fight easier than he did the last time.
Right.
I think when you look at that, was the worst Chris Eubank
could turn up
and the best colleague Conor Benn. So you look at that and you go, Chris, if he hits a weight right, because there was problems with that weight, and I know by making weight, if you miss it, even by an ounce or two, it can affect the performance so badly. And I think that he gets it right this time and the fight becomes easier.
Are you all on board the hype train? You all looking forward to it, Frazer? All of you?
Yeah, because the first one was really good and it was competitive. And that's what I look for in these fights. Are they competitive? forget the weight and everything, it's actually a well-matched fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like a movie, it's a really good match.
It's a well-matched fight with the bonus, or added bonus for me being a bit older of all the nostalgia. I think that's
you like
why
that.
it sells. And
Well, I think that captures a lot of people, doesn't it? Like,
does.
do we want to see it again? Of course we do. If you're taking off from the last one, you have to see it again.
Well, you'll be able to have some nostalgia this season because you'll be able to look back on Liverpool having won the Premier League last year but not winning it this year. That'll be your nostalgia, Mr. Smith.
Nah, mate.
I've got no reply to that, to be honest with you, at the moment. But I'll see you next week.
No blow. Right, that's it for episode 143 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan, Spencer Oliver and Frazer Clarke. Thanks for joining us, boys. And we'll see you guys next time we're out.